Chapter 30-33. Before obtaining a certain amount of battle results, cultivators could only participate in the arena on the 16th floor. Unless they had accumulated enough battle results, they could only proceed to the 17th floor. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three had already expected this, so they were not surprised. As Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three arrived at the 16th floor, a burst of deafening shouts broke into their ears. In their line of sight, there was a huge arena in the center, surrounded by seats in the shape of steps. At this moment, two cultivators were locked in a fierce battle in the arena, and the surrounding spectator seats were also filled with people. At this moment, they were constantly raising their hands and cheering for the cultivators that they favored. A faint smell of blood spread out from the arena. The two cultivators were already injured, but they did not seem to feel the pain on their bodies. Their gazes were abnormally fierce, as if they would not stop until they killed their opponent. After seeing this scene, Shengguan Yingying's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise. This situation was indeed the same as what Xiren had described to her. This competition has already started, we can't place any bets. Xiren shrugged. They came to the arena area today for no other reason than to earn spirit stones. Let's go to the spectator seats and take a look first. We don't know enough about the combat power of a 5th level Purple Realm cultivator. Watching a few more matches will be beneficial for us. Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Xiren nodded slightly. The four of them then found an empty seat in the spectator seats and sat down. After Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three sat down, a waiter came up to them and asked if they needed food and drinks. However, he was rejected by Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. Right now they could not even pay for the room, let alone order something here. However, the surrounding cultivators were obviously much wealthier than them. Many of the cultivators were drinking wine while watching the arena excitedly. Shengguan Yingying looked at the bright red liquid in many people's wine glasses and could not help but wonder, what are they drinking? I don't think I've ever seen such a crystal clear red drink before. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two looked at each other. She and Di Beichen then looked away, leaving everything to Xiren to explain. Bloody Mary. Xiren lowered his voice and whispered in Shengguan Yingying's ear. To put it simply, it's human blood. But it's been processed so it doesn't look sticky. As Xiren's voice fell, Shengguan Yingying's expression suddenly changed. She covered her mouth with her right hand and wanted to vomit, but she forcefully held it back. Some of the cultivators present also noticed Shengguan Yingying's movements. They glanced at Shengguan Yingying indifferently and labeled her as a newbie. They can actually drink human blood with such relish? Shengguan Yingying asked in disbelief. When Xiren smiled faintly. After we win the bet, you can also order a cup to try. I'm not interested in this kind of thing. Shengguan Yingying hurriedly refused. Xiren raised his eyebrows. He did not intend to force Shengguan Yingying, but the demonic abyss itself was such an existence. He believed that Shengguan Yingying would understand after staying here for a long time. Bang! Tyrannical origin energy collided in the arena. How strong was a 5th level Purple Realm cultivator? Chapter 30-34. How powerful would a 5th level Purple Realm cultivator be when they unleashed all of their strength? Even the entire Devil Training Tower would be destroyed under such power. However, even though the battle between the two was extremely intense, they were still isolated within the protective barrier. Just this point alone was enough to see how powerful the protective barrier was. This was only the lowest level of the arena. The cultivators in the arenas above would become more and more powerful, and the fluctuations from the battle would become more and more intense. However, the entire Devil Training Tower was not affected at all. This made Bailey Hongzhuang sigh at how amazing the Devil Training Tower was. Bang! Shocking collisions continued to erupt. Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that the battle was nearing its end. The two people in the arena had basically used all of their strength. They were only left with one last fight. Kill him! Kill him! The spectators in the stands kept shouting. Their eyes flashed with excitement. Such a bloody scene did not make them feel uncomfortable at all. On the contrary, it made them very excited. Shengguan Yingying was speechless when she saw such a perverted scene. Sure enough, the people here were all crazy. There was no moral bottom line at all. Originally, she did not think much of Xiren's introduction. She only thought that Xiren was exaggerating. However, it seemed that Xiren was not exaggerating at all. On the contrary, it was very simple. Fresh blood seemed to be the main theme here. Everyone was excited because of fresh blood. Human life became the most insignificant thing. Bailey Hongzhuang silently watched the battle in the arena. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a deep and shrewd light. The people here were different from the cultivators in the Bloody Ground Abyss. The cultivators in the Bloody Ground Abyss could only be considered not bad. However, the cultivators in the Devil Training Abyss were already geniuses among geniuses. Any cultivator who had cultivated to this level would cherish their lives very much. If they were to lose their lives just because of a competition, it would not be worth it. Therefore, she was very curious about the final result of this competition. Bang! One of the men fell heavily to the ground. Panting, he no longer had the strength to stand up. His body was already covered in blood, and there was a bloody hole in his head. Blood kept flowing out from the wound, and the strong smell of blood entered everyone's nostrils. Kill him! Kill him! The crowd was still clamoring as if Yang's methods were the only thing that could make them feel better. However, in the end, the opponent didn't take the guy's life. Instead, he took the number plate from his body, paired the two numbers together, and threw the number plate back to the guy. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seemed that they didn't have enough understanding of the arena. Di Beichen pondered and said slowly, that number plate should have the winning points. After this man won, he directly took away the points that belonged to his opponent. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded lightly, if you want to reach a higher level, you must have enough points. Even though they didn't know much, they could make a judgment based on their past experience. Chapter 30-35. For a cultivator to reach the 5th level of the Purple Realm, the amount of hard work and effort required was simply unimaginable. The higher the cultivation, the more unwilling one was to die. This result was already much better than what they had imagined. I feel that this person must have paid a heavy price, or else the opponent wouldn't have let him go so easily. Sheng Guanying pondered. No matter what price he paid, it's not as important as his own life. Xiren said with a smile. Sheng Guanying nodded. That's true. From the looks of it, although it's easy to get seriously injured in the Demon Training Tower's arena, it's not so easy to lose one's life. That's not bad. The worry in Xiren's eyes dissipated a little. If they wanted to obtain the qualifications to cultivate in the cultivation area, they had to participate in the arena. If it was easy to lose one's life in the arena, it would be a huge risk for them. Although they came here with the spirit of adventure, they didn't want to die in vain. If that's the case, then we have to be careful not to offend some people. Otherwise, the arena could very well be upgraded to a life-and-death battle. Di Beichen said with a smile. As soon as these words came out, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other two's faces became serious. One had to know that in a place like the Demon Training Abyss, where everything depended on one's fists, reasoning wouldn't work at all. Conflicts between cultivators couldn't be more simple. It was possible that you didn't do anything and the other party simply didn't like you. That was also very possible. With their understanding of themselves, the possibility of not causing trouble in a place like this was close to zero. They could only try their best to be careful. Next battle, 5th level of the Purple Realm Zhao Jun against 5th level of the Purple Realm Zhang Liang. Zhao Jun's current record is 5 battles, 3 wins and 2 losses. Zhang Liang's current record is 7 battles, 3 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw. At this time, the staff of the Demon Training Tower had already stood up to announce the situation of the two cultivators in the next battle. While the staff was introducing themselves, Zhao Jun and Zhang Liang slowly walked up to the arena so that the audience could better recognize them. The next 20 minutes will be the time to place your bets. You can check the odds for yourselves. After 20 minutes, the arena will officially begin. After listening to the introduction, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others couldn't help but look at the odds in the arena area. On a black rectangular board, the odds were clearly written. Zhao Jun's odds were 1-3, and Zhang Liang's odds were 1-5. According to this situation, we can only bet based on our own judgment. It's hard to tell if we can win in the end. Xiren frowned. In his current situation, the only way to earn spirit stones was to place bets. However, he only knew about the strength and battle records of the two. He had no idea about the fighting style of the two. It was very difficult to determine the final winner. Although the results could reflect the situation of some cultivators, it was not absolute. Some cultivators were unlucky and met very strong cultivators. Naturally, they would not be able to improve their battle results. However, some cultivators were lucky and their battle results were much better. However, once the two of them met, it was hard to tell whether the final result would be good or bad. Chapter 30-36. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen naturally noticed this and their expressions became complicated. If this method didn't work, then it wouldn't be so easy for them to spend their days in the Demon Training Tower. According to these odds, Zhao Jun should have a higher chance of winning. Unfortunately, our cultivation isn't enough and we can't carefully distinguish the strength of their auras. We can only roughly judge from their current performance. Di Baichen said in a deep voice. Xiren nodded. In this way, the accuracy of our judgment will decrease a lot. I'm afraid there will be a winner and a loser. Then there's nothing we can do. We can only try our best to judge more accurately. Shengguan Yingying revealed a helpless expression. The current scene really left her at her wit's end. Originally, they had been living as geniuses until now, but ever since they came to Penglai Island, the situation had changed. Not only was their cultivation lower than ordinary people, but their wealth was also completely insufficient. Now this was the only way to earn some spiritual knowledge, but the success rate couldn't be guaranteed. Who do you bet on? Xiren asked. While they were discussing, more than half of the betting time had passed. If they still didn't bet, then all of this would be over. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three looked at each other and said their thoughts in unison. Zhao Jun. Zhang Liang. Zhao Jun. Zhang Liang. Hearing this result, a helpless expression appeared on the faces of the four people. The result was actually 2 against 2. This was a big problem. In my opinion, this isn't the way. I'm afraid we have to stay in the stands for a while. After we have a better understanding of the combat strength of these people, the accuracy of our bets will increase. When Xiren's brows furrowed slightly, and his dark eyes shone with a thoughtful light. Right now, they were already embarrassingly short of money, and simply did not have any more money to squander. Once they lost the bet, it would be one disaster after another. If they couldn't find a way to earn money on this demon training island, going to other islands would only be worse. Because here, as long as they stayed in the residential area, ordinary people wouldn't be able to detect their cultivation at all, so there was naturally no need to hide too much. Once they went to other islands, if they wanted to earn spirit stones, they would have to deal with other people, and it would be even more difficult to hide. If that's the case, it'll take a lot of time, Bailey Hongzhuang said in a low voice. Time was of the essence to them. When Xiren shrugged. But there's nothing we can do about the current situation. Why don't we do it in batches? That way we can save some time on cultivation. That's the only way now. Di Baichen nodded. When Xiren smiled faintly. Let's be more optimistic. Watching this kind of competition will also be very beneficial for us to improve our strength. These are not the meaningless competitions that we've seen before. Then it's decided. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. In this competition, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other 3 didn't bet. Instead, they sat quietly in the stands and watched the whole competition. At the same time, they also had a certain understanding of the strength of Zhang Liang and Zhao Jun. At least, the next time the 2 of them went on the stage, it would be much easier for them to judge, and the odds of winning would also increase a lot. Chapter 30-37. Under these circumstances, the accuracy of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' bets increased quite a bit. However, there were still some wins and losses, but overall they still won more. After all, if they won they would receive double the rewards, and if they lost they would not need to double the rewards. As a result, their daily expenses could be solved. However, this required them to spend more time in the arena area, which was what they were most dissatisfied with. However, there was nothing they could do about it. Because Bailey Hongzhuang and the others often went to the arena area and had never participated in the arena battles, they gradually attracted the attention of many people. In the end, the 4 of them were labeled as poor people. There were cultivators who used this method to earn spirit stones in the demon training tower, so everyone was able to quickly determine this. However, there were not many people like this. Because they had become poor people in everyone's eyes, everyone was too lazy to pay attention to Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This saved them a lot of trouble. Because everyone looked down on them, no one was willing to pay attention to them. Naturally, there were no conflicts. For this point, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were also quite helpless. They really didn't know what to say. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen finished placing their bets and slowly walked back to the second floor of the residential area. As they walked, the 2 of them heard the conversation of the 2 people in front of them. The healing medicine in the demon training tower is too expensive and the effects are not good. It's really troublesome. Indeed, the price of medicinal pills is much higher than outside. If you aren't very rich, you won't be able to buy them often. The only thing we can afford is healing medicine. However, the effects of healing medicine are much worse than medicinal pills. If we spend all our time on healing, it's a waste of time. There's no helping it. The price of everything in the demon training tower is higher than outside. Before I came, I prepared a lot of healing pills, but now I've used them all. Thinking about it, it's really troublesome. Listening to the conversation between the 2, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but light up as an idea suddenly sprouted in her mind. Previously she had also thought of selling medicinal pills. However, refining medicinal pills was really time-consuming. She might as well go to the spectator area to watch the arena matches. On one hand, she would have a better understanding of the demon training tower. On the other hand, she would be able to gain experience from watching other people's battles. It would also be beneficial to her own strength. Now that she heard the conversation between the two of them, she remembered that she didn't have to sell healing pills. She only had to sell healing pills. Although healing pills and medicine were both used to treat injuries, healing pills were made by alchemists. It took a lot of time to make, but the effect was good. However, the price was also very high. Healing medicine, on the other hand, was concocted by a doctor. It took a short time and its effects were not as good as healing pills. However, the price was correspondingly lower. However, as a godly doctor, Bailey Hongzhuang had mastered many types of healing medicine, and there were also many that had good effects. She could make healing pills with effects comparable to healing pills. The price was cheaper than medicinal pills, and the production speed was also very fast. This way they would be able to save even more time to cultivate. Chapter 30-38. Once they returned to the room, Bailey Hongzhuang impatiently told Di Baichen her idea. Di Baichen, I'm preparing to make some healing medicine and put it on sale at the counter. If the sales are good, we can save a lot of time and just focus on cultivating. Moreover, the Demon Training Tower also has quite a few heavenly treasures for sale that can help increase cultivation. However, these require a certain amount of points, and selling things can also give us a certain amount of points. Once we succeed, we can use this method to increase our cultivation as quickly as possible. Bailey Hongzhuang's bright eyes flashed with excitement and anticipation. She felt extremely helpless about their situation after coming to the Demon Training Tower. Now that they had a chance to change this situation, it was undoubtedly the best result. Hearing this, Di Baichen did not find Bailey Hongzhuang's suggestion strange at all. In fact, after hearing the conversation between the two cultivators, he had already guessed Bailey Hongzhuang's idea. In terms of ability to survive outside, he, Wen Ziren, and Shengguan Yingying could not compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang, who had a myriad of talents, would never be in a difficult situation no matter where she was. Speaking of which, they were really basking in Bailey Hongzhuang's light. Wife, this is a good suggestion. However, wouldn't this waste too much of your time? Di Baichen's black eyes were filled with deep concern. If it saved the three of them time and caused Bailey Hongzhuang to waste all of her time, it would not be worth it. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly and said with a smile, "Don't worry, I can make healing medicine very quickly. It won't take as much time as refining pills. I'll start making it now and bring it to the counter to try it out later. However, I won't state my identity as a doctor, so I'm afraid that the sales will not be too good at the beginning." "No need to rush, we're just trying it out," Di Baichen said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded and immediately began to get busy. When it came to making medicinal ingredients, she was very familiar with it. Her chaos ring had always been filled with many medicinal ingredients. Because the chances of her using them were very high, she was used to filling it to the brim. Every time she used some, she would fill it up as long as she had the chance. This good habit also saved her a lot of trouble. If she bought medicinal ingredients in the Demon Training Tower, the price would be several times higher than outside. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang focus on making the medicine, Di Baichen stared at it for a while before entering his cultivation. He did not want to disturb Hongzhuang's making. The three beasties stayed by Bailey Hongzhuang's side. Xiao He and Xiao Bai even directly helped Bailey Hongzhuang. Because Bai Shi's movements were not as convenient as Xiao He and Xiao Bai, it could not hold anything with its two paws, so it could only watch from the side. "I think that if we continue to follow Master, we might be able to become a monster beast doctor in the future." Xiao He joked with a smile while helping to grind the medicinal ingredients. Xiao Bai nodded. "That's a good idea, haha." Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao He and Xiao Bai, who were busy and happy and could not help but smile. "In that case, I'll have to teach you properly. If this medicine sells well, I'll give you this task after teaching you. How about it?" Chapter 30-39. When it came to fighting and killing, Xiao He and Xiao Bai were the best. When it came to concocting medicinal pills, there was no problem for them to help, but if it was completely handed over to them, they still didn't have enough confidence in this kind of meticulous work. It was very likely that after making it, there would be some deviation in the effect. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled and flicked Xiao He and Xiao Bai's heads. These two little guys had followed her all the way until now, and their ability to act cute really hadn't changed at all. However, she felt that if she trained them well, these two little guys would have no problem becoming her left and right arms. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't concoct much healing medicine today. She planned to take it to the counter and try to sell it first. If it sold well, she would make more. If it didn't sell well, then she didn't need to waste too much time. Of course, in her heart, she still had enough confidence in the healing medicine she made. When Bailey Hongzhuang came to the counter, she saw a familiar figure because the woman sitting in front of the counter at the moment was the woman who received them when they first came to the demon training tower. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream's eyes also showed a touch of surprise. When she first saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she only felt that this man was very handsome, which made her have a good impression of him. However, after knowing that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a poor ghost, Sweet Dream had no more thoughts. It was completely difficult for a poor ghost to live on Penglai Island. If she was with such a person, then her life would be ruined. Later, she also paid attention to the situation of Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. After discovering that they had been going to the arena to earn spirit stones but had never fought in the arena, Sweet Dream was even more disappointed. These were really a few poor ghosts and they weren't very strong. Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three's performance in the arena was simply famous recently. Everyone treated them as a joke, but Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three didn't seem to feel anything. This made Sweet Dream even more despise them. She had seen a lot of cultivators in the demon training tower, and there were all kinds of people, but there were very few people who were completely shameless like Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three. After all, to cultivate to this level, anyone would have a certain amount of pride in their heart, but the four of them didn't seem to feel this at all. If Bailey Hongzhuang knew what Sweet Dream was thinking at this moment, she would definitely feel very helpless. In fact, after the four came back, they would cultivate. Although they could vaguely guess what others thought of them, they didn't know that it was to this extent. However, even if they knew it, they probably wouldn't care. If they were really at the 5th level of the Purple Realm, they would have already entered the arena to participate in the competition. However, with their current level of cultivation, once it was exposed, it would be really troublesome. Enduring humiliation was also a kind of ability. Lord D, how can I help you? Although she was extremely disappointed in Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream still showed a trace of a smile on her face. This was the rule of the Demon Training Tower. Chapter 30-40. As soon as Bailey Hongzhuang finished speaking, Sweet Dream's expression froze. She stared at Bailey Hongzhuang in shock, wondering if she had misheard. What did you say? She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang had only come to the counter to buy some necessities. The four of them had stayed on the 2nd floor for some time now, but apart from the room fees, they had not spent anything else. She was certain that Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been eating dry rations during this period of time. However, it had been so long, so they should have pretty much run out. Apart from Bailey Hongzhuang and the others, she had not seen anyone else who could live so shabbily on Demonic Refinement Island. However, she had just heard Bailey Hongzhuang say that she wanted to sell healing medicine. I have some healing medicine here. Please help me sell it. Bailey Hongzhuang took out 10 white porcelain bottles and placed them on the counter, directly using her actions to explain her intentions. Sweet Dream looked at the white porcelain bottles before her and realized that she had not misheard. However, she could not help but frown. You're not a doctor. No one will believe your healing medicine. You haven't spent much on Demonic Refinement Island recently. Could it be that you need to use this method to survive? Sweet Dream found this to be rather unbelievable. She simply could not imagine just how poor Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were. Now, they actually wanted to exchange their own healing medicine for spiritual stones. If that was the case, they might as well just leave. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Sweet Dream indifferently. I don't think I need to explain my situation to you. She knew very well that Sweet Dream looked down on them, so she had no intention of explaining. This was because even if she did, Sweet Dream would only think that she was putting up a strong front. Besides, they could only be considered acquaintances at most. There was no need to explain. Sensing the coldness in Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Sweet Dream was even more certain that her judgment was correct. Every cultivator had their own pride. Now that she had exposed it, Bailey Hongzhuang would definitely be very unhappy. She immediately stopped asking. Our magic training tower's best-selling healing medicines are all made by alchemists and healers. You're only living on the 2nd floor. I can help you sell the healing medicines, but I'm afraid my price won't be high, Sweet Dream slowly said. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Help me set a suitable price. Let me know when it's sold. If anyone else needs it, you can also let me know. All right. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree so readily, Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with pity. She never thought that she would end up like this after coming to the demon training tower. How pitiful. After explaining these matters, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and returned to her residence. Master, I think I saw pity in that woman's eyes? Xiaohei could not help but ask. That's enough, Xiaobai was speechless. Does that woman think she's the savior of the world? She actually took pity on us? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. In the eyes of many people, we are indeed worthy of pity. If she wants to pity us, then let her. It has nothing to do with us anyway. Chapter 30-41. She felt that she was choosing someone she could rely on among the many cultivators. Little did she know that in the eyes of many more people, she was merely a commodity to be chosen. Women like her had always been pitiful. The most pitiful thing was that she had fallen into such a situation without even realizing it. After returning to their room, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen entered a state of cultivation together. The two of them entered the chaos ring directly. Cultivating in the desert world was the best way to improve. Now that their powers have increased, they have almost explored the entire desert world. Thinking back when they had first arrived, they had only felt that the desert world was incomparably vast. After spending so much time exploring, they had changed from being ignorant to understanding. The desert world wasn't endless. It had an end as well. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had killed more and more monstrous beasts in the desert world. In the process of such battles, their powers had also continued to increase. After all, they could only fight with all their might against monstrous beasts with coarse skin, thick flesh, and boundless strength. Under such imperceptible influence, their powers had gradually increased. It was not only Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen. The three demonic beasts' powers had also increased. There seems to be a city wall in front. Standing in the middle of the desert world, Bailey Hongzhuang stared at the towering city wall in the distance. A trace of astonishment flashed across her pitch-black phoenix eyes. All this time, they had only seen boundless yellow sand in the desert world. The entire place was empty and there was nothing but sand dunes. However, at this moment, in front of Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's eyes, a row of city walls had clearly appeared. The appearance of these city walls was extremely sudden. It was as if they had always been here. Di Beichen stopped in his tracks and looked in the direction that Bailey Hongzhuang was pointing. A trace of astonishment flashed across his handsome eyes. It really is a city wall. Why would a city wall suddenly appear here? That's strange. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. So far they had stayed in the desert world for a long time, but they had only seen monsters and had never seen humans. So what was the situation with the city wall now? Let's go take a look, Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Now, the demonic beasts in the desert world were no longer a threat to them. The city wall in front of them was strange. They had to take a look to be sure. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her pretty face showing a trace of vigilance and seriousness, but her eyes flashed with a trace of expectation. From the moment they entered the desert world they had been exploring. The appearance of new things meant that there might be new opportunities. She was an adventurer, so she was full of anticipation for such novel things. The three beasts followed behind Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen and were equally curious about the situation. Finally, the two humans and three beasts successfully arrived at the city wall. The city wall was 50 meters high. Standing in front of the city wall, it seemed as if the sky was blocked. The grayish-yellow city wall exuded an ancient and heavy aura. The densely packed patterns on it were like spells, revealing a mysterious power. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the complicated patterns in front of her and vaguely felt that these patterns had some meaning. It was just that they could not understand it. Chapter 30-42. Di Beichen nodded. His expression was equally complicated as he said, "This city wall seems to be a forbidden door. These symbols seem to be filled with a mysterious power as well." Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other. It seems that both of them had the same idea. The symbols and the existence of the city wall must have some sort of meaning. It was just that the two of them had no way of determining what it was. I wonder what's on the other side of the city wall. Feels so mysterious. Baisher looked at the gate of the city wall. It was as if pushing open the thick and heavy gate would lead to another world. Xiao Hei's eyes darted around as she said, "Master, why don't we open the gate of the city wall and take a look inside?" All this while they had been exploring the world within the chaos ring. They believed that there could be something even more mysterious waiting for them on the other side of the city wall. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully studied the city wall and nodded, "All right. Since they could not determine the meaning of the city wall's existence, they should walk to the other side of the city wall and take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen slowly walked towards the gate of the city wall. Compared to the thick and heavy city gate, their figures appeared extremely tiny. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen gradually exerted more force in their hands. They suddenly realized that the weight of the city gate had far exceeded their expectations. They continued to exert more force in their hands, but the city gate only moved slightly. It was only after the two had exerted all their strength that they slowly pushed the city gate open. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The city gate had clearly not been opened for a very long time. Once it was pushed open, a cloud of dust flew into the air and landed on Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's bodies. The two of them could not help but cough. Once Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had opened the city gate, they were immediately shocked by the sight before them. In their line of sight was a vast and boundless ocean. The entire world seemed to be filled with a deep blue color. It was a stark contrast to the boundless yellow sand from before. How can this be? Bailey Hongzhuang stared dazedly at the sight before her. Her mind could not wrap itself around this. They had just been in a desert world. How could they have entered the ocean in the blink of an eye? Di Beichen and Di Beichen immediately turned around to look at the city wall behind them, only to realize that the city wall had disappeared without a trace. It was as if it had never existed in the first place. Behind him was the same blue ocean. At this moment, the three beasts were completely dumbfounded. The world had changed too quickly, making them wonder if they were dreaming. However, a huge wave hit them directly, and they were directly slapped into the sea. This clearly told them that everything in front of them was real and not an illusion. After spitting out a mouthful of seawater, the shock in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes did not dissipate. There's actually another world behind the city wall. Does this mean that we'll have to train in this ocean next? Di Beichen took out a boat and pulled Bailey Hongzhuang onto the boat. He said, I'm afraid so. We've already adapted to everything in the desert world. The monsters there are no longer much of a threat to us. That's why we came here. It seems that we still need to explore this world properly. Chapter 3043. My dear wife, this chaos ring of yours is truly a priceless treasure. It's constantly improving according to our situation. This way we'll have even better opportunities to train. Di Beichen quickly understood the key, and his deep eyes suddenly bloomed with a bright light. Ever since he found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had the Chaos Ring, he felt more and more that the Chaos Ring was magical. Originally, the desert world allowed them to have 3 times more time to cultivate, which was already a great help. Moreover, they could continuously improve themselves by fighting monsters. Now that they didn't have much improvement in the desert world, they came to a brand new world. If his judgment was correct, the monsters in this oceanic world were probably much stronger than the monsters in the desert world. This was using this kind of pressure to force them to grow. Although the process was very difficult, once they persevered, the effect of improvement was very obvious. Hearing Di Beichen's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood and was immediately surprised. In that case, we'll have to train in this oceanic world in the future. Thinking back to when she first transmigrated because of the Chaos Ring, she felt very depressed. However, the more she found out about the magic of the Chaos Ring, the more she understood why there was an energy storm when she dripped her blood on it. It was because the power of the Chaos Ring was really too heaven-defying. Divine artifacts were very rare in this world, and the Chaos Ring was definitely a divine artifact among divine artifacts. At this moment, the 3 beasts were already drenched by the waves. Their furry fur was drooping on their bodies, and they were no longer as mighty and cute as before. At this moment, they were constantly shaking their heads, trying to shake off the water droplets on their bodies. Master, this oceanic world should be very dangerous. Thinking back to when we first arrived in the desert world, it was also very dangerous. When they first came to the desert world, they almost lost their lives. I still remembered that scene clearly. As soon as Xiao Bai's voice fell, Bailey Hongzhuang's ship was violently attacked and shook. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, then looked at Xiao Bai at the side. You really jinxed it. Xiao Bai clearly knew that it had said something wrong and couldn't help but shut its mouth. It didn't expect the good things to not come true, but the bad things to come true. It had only said it casually and the attack immediately came. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen's eyes flashed with a strong fighting spirit. They had to hide their cultivation in the Devil Training Tower, so they didn't have the chance to fight. In the long run, this wasn't a good thing for them. If they could find an opponent in the oceanic world, it would undoubtedly be extremely good for them. All of their improvements could be reflected through battle. At the same time, battle could also stimulate their potential and promote their improvement. Just like that, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen cultivated in the Chaos Ring for one day, and went to the spectator area to watch the competition and place their bets on the arena. Every time they placed a bet, they couldn't guarantee that they would win. However, at the end of the day they would always win a little more. At the very least, there was no problem in maintaining their daily expenses. Chapter 30-44. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three used spirit stones, they discovered the wonders of spirit stones. The spirit stones were filled with extremely rich and pure spirit energy. Although some impurities had to be removed during absorption, it was much faster than absorbing spirit energy from the air. If they used spirit stones for an entire day of cultivation, their cultivation speed would be 3 or even 4 times faster than before. In addition, the density of spirit energy in the Devil Training Tower was much higher than the outside world, so their cultivation speed would also be greatly increased. However, their biggest problem was that they did not have spirit stones to support their cultivation. Therefore, even if they obtained a certain amount of spirit stones through betting in the arena, they still had to be very frugal. This was because the spirit stones in the arena were still not enough to support their cultivation. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen cultivated in the ocean world. Although they were in a state of battle for a long time, the time in the ocean world was originally longer than the outside world. Therefore, the amount of spirit stones they consumed during cultivation was much more than Xiren and Shangguaningying. Under such circumstances they could only save spirit stones. It was impossible for them to use spirit stones to exchange for a more comfortable residence. Ever since Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to the counter, she had not received any news from the counter. On this day Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but go to the counter again. The woman in front of the counter was still Sweet Dream. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang come, Sweet Dream's face revealed a look of understanding. Obviously, she had already guessed the purpose of Bailey Hongzhuang's visit. "Young Master D, I have already helped you put your healing medicine up for sale. However, no one is interested. I advise you to take it back. I'm afraid this healing medicine won't be able to be sold." Sweet Dream went straight to the point. From the moment Bailey Hongzhuang handed the healing medicine to her to sell, she had already expected this situation. Until now, half a month had passed but no one was interested at all. For a moment she felt a little ridiculous in her heart. Listening to Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang's brows furrowed silently. She didn't expect that the situation would be like this. She had never succeeded. She had enough confidence in the effects of her healing medicine. She believed that as long as someone bought a set of healing medicine, they would discover its benefits. Unfortunately, the healing medicine that she put out now was obviously not something that anyone would want. However, this was understandable. After all, she was only an ordinary cultivator who lived on the second floor and was not a doctor. If it was anyone else, they wouldn't think that a poor person like her would have any good treasures on her. Without waiting for Bailey Hongzhuang to speak, Sweet Dream had already taken out the 10 bottles of healing pills that Bailey Hongzhuang had entrusted to her. It was obvious that she had no interest in continuing to help Bailey Hongzhuang sell medicinal pills. "Take it." As soon as she finished speaking, Sweet Dream no longer looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. She only lowered her head and minded her own business. Seeing Sweet Dream's actions, Bailey Hongzhuang did not take it to heart and continued, "I'll have to trouble you to continue to help me sell these medicinal pills, but..." Before Bailey Hongzhuang could finish speaking, Sweet Dream had already frowned. A thick sense of impatience appeared on her face. Chapter 30-45. Tianmeng had become more and more impatient with Bailey Hongzhuang. The little bit of good impression she had of Bailey Hongzhuang had completely disappeared when she knew that she was a poor ghost. At this moment, seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was so poor that she could only use her own things to exchange for spirit stones, she felt even more disgusted. She simply could not understand. Since Bailey Hongzhuang was already so poor, why did she continue to stay in the Devil Training Tower? She was simply seeking her own death. When Bailey Hongzhuang saw Sweet Dream's attitude, a trace of displeasure flashed through her inky black phoenix eyes. Her voice also became colder. "Miss, selling things on consignment is a right that all cultivators in the Devil Training Tower enjoy. I'm willing to sell things here, so you don't have the right to refuse, do you?" A cold and icy voice slowly came out of Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth. Her dark eyes flashed with a cold light, without the slightest bit of warmth. Sweet Dream raised her head and noticed Bailey Hongzhuang's cold gaze. Her heart couldn't help but tremble as a chill rose from the bottom of her feet. She had never seen Bailey Hongzhuang like this before. Before, Bailey Hongzhuang had always been very easy to talk to. Even if her words were filled with disdain, Bailey Hongzhuang had never revealed any dissatisfaction. But now, Bailey Hongzhuang's expression made her understand that it wasn't that she couldn't get angry. At the very least, her actions today had angered her. Help me write down that the first 3 sets of medicine will be free. If they still can't be sold after a week, I'll naturally take them away. Bailey Hongzhuang coldly glanced at Sweet Dream, then turned around and left the counter. She had no interest in others relying on their master's power, but Sweet Dream's actions had already touched her bottom line. She had originally planned to ignore it, but she never thought that Sweet Dream would push her luck. Naturally, she wouldn't be polite. Sweet Dream stared blankly at Bailey Hongzhuang's back as she left. Her mind was still replaying the scene of Bailey Hongzhuang's soul-stirring gaze. Her heart was filled with shock. She suddenly felt that her previous opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang might have been wrong. That gaze was truly frightening. Even from experts stronger than Bailey Hongzhuang, she had never felt such a gaze. She swallowed a mouthful of saliva, then announced Bailey Hongzhuang's request. Although she still believed that Bailey Hongzhuang's medicine could not be sold, Sweet Dream was truly worried that if she didn't do as Bailey Hongzhuang said, Bailey Hongzhuang might take her life. Master, why is no one interested in your healing medicine? A look of disbelief flashed across Xiao Hei's face. The medicine that its master concocted had always been treasures that everyone would fight over. Who would have thought that no one would show any interest in the Devil Training Tower? The drop in its heart was really not ordinary. This place is not like the outside world. No one knows Master's true identity, so it's not strange for this to happen. Xiao Bai's eyes turned, then looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Master, why don't you go directly to the doctor's residence? Chapter 3046. It's true that I can live there, but Beichen and the rest can't go with me. Since that's the case, I might as well stay here. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged her shoulders. She had thought about this before, but the 4 of them were a team. How could she live upstairs by herself? Moreover, even if she lived on the 2nd floor, it wouldn't affect her at all. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiao Hei and Xiao Bai immediately understood. They were only thinking about Bailey Hongzhuang's identity and forgot that normal cultivators were not allowed to enter the doctor's residential area. Master is right. Why don't we just stay here? Xiao Hei nodded. I believe that as long as those people use Master's healing medicine, there will be people interested in it very soon. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and patted Xiao Hei's little head. This girl was a complete chatterbox, but she was also a source of joy for her. As long as the healing medicine is effective, people will notice it sooner or later. It's just that our performance in the arena has been very famous recently. Everyone thinks that a poor person like me can't take out anything good. Bailey Hongzhuang joked. In fact, ever since she transmigrated to the present, other than the time when she was in the general's residence when she was poor, she had always been in a state of wealth. The current situation made her feel as if she had returned to the past. Xiao Yihan was in a very bad mood today. He had just participated in an arena competition and suffered some injuries. However, for some reason, whether it was healing medicine or healing elixirs, there were very few on sale recently. Moreover, they were usually sold out the moment they were released. He didn't notice that the healing elixirs in his Chengkuan bag were all gone. He went to the counter and asked around, but found that there were no elixirs and healing elixirs for sale. This made him feel very helpless. He still had an appointment with the others for a single elimination tournament tomorrow. If he couldn't recover from his injuries as soon as possible, he would definitely be at a disadvantage in the single elimination tournament tomorrow. This was something he didn't want to see. Unfortunately, he asked the person at the counter to ask the pharmacists and doctors, but there was no corresponding healing medicine for sale today. Why is there no healing medicine today? Help me ask again. I'd rather buy it at a high price. Xiao Yihan said angrily. Hearing Xiao Yihan's words, the woman at the counter could not help but shudder. Xiao Yihan was a cultivator from the 15th floor's arena area. His battle record had always been outstanding, and there was basically no one who dared to offend him. She was just an ordinary worker in the magic training tower. She couldn't bear Xiao Yihan's anger. Young Master Xiao, I have already gone over there to inquire. However, the alchemists and doctors did not offer any healing medicine today. There is nothing I can do, the woman said gently, forcing a smile on her face. However, Xiao Yihan completely ignored the woman's smile. He slammed his hand on the table and said angrily, I don't care about that. It's not like I don't have money. I can afford any price. You have to get the medicine for me. Otherwise, you'll have to deal with the consequences. Chapter 3047. Hearing Xiao Yihan's roar, the woman couldn't help but tremble. Panic quickly surged onto her face, and her eyes were filled with deep fear. Young Master Xiao, I really have no choice. The more the woman spoke, the softer her voice became, and the less confident she became. She was really worried that Xiao Yihan would take her life in a fit of anger. Just then, the woman suddenly discovered that there was news of a cultivator selling healing medicine on the second floor. Her eyes instantly lit up, and her heart was filled with excitement. Previously, she didn't take this news to heart at all. Now that she saw this news, it was as if she saw a life-saving straw. She immediately said to Xiao Yihan, Young Master Xiao, there are no healing medicines for sale in the alchemist and doctor area today. However, there is a cultivator selling healing medicines on the second floor. I wonder if this healing medicine is okay? The woman looked at Xiao Yihan tentatively. Although she also thought that the healing medicine sold by the cultivator on the second floor wouldn't have much effect, it was better than nothing. She only hoped that this news would be able to reduce Xiao Yihan's anger by a little. Hearing the woman's words, Xiao Yihan couldn't help but frown. This news still made him very dissatisfied, but at least it was better than nothing. The healing medicine sold by the cultivator on the second floor? Xiao Yihan raised his eyebrows and asked. His words were obviously filled with suspicion. The woman nodded. There are a total of 10 portions of healing medicine. The first 3 portions are free, but a cultivator has already taken one of them. There are 9 remaining and the price is also very low. Am I the kind of person who cares about the price? Xiao Yihan asked back. No, that's not what I meant. The woman waved her hands and said. This is the healing medicine sold by the cultivator on the second floor, and the price is so low. One look and you can tell that the effect isn't too good. Xiao Yihan said slowly. Most of the cultivators on the second floor were poor people. It was obvious what kind of things these people could take out just by thinking about it. However, Xiao Yihan also understood that there were really no other healing medicines for sale. He was left with this choice. It was better than nothing. Then bring me the remaining 9 bottles of healing medicine. I'll buy them. Hearing Xiao Yihan's words, the woman felt as if she had been pardoned, and joy quickly appeared on her face. Young Master Xiao, please wait for a moment. I will immediately bring the medicine over and send it to your room. Xiao Yihan nodded. The anger on his face still hadn't dissipated. He turned around and went back into the house. At the very least, the effect of the healing medicine was much better than the wound healing itself. Bailey Hongzhuang was cultivating in her room when suddenly there was a knock on the door. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang could not help but frown. Ever since she had started living here, more than a month had passed. Other than Xiren and Wen Xinya, no one else had knocked on her door. At this time, Wen and Xiren should be placing their bets in the arena. As soon as she opened the door, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Sweet Dream standing outside. Chapter 3048. Hearing Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, took the spirit stones and said, "Thank you." However, in the next second, without waiting for Sweet Dream to continue speaking, Bailey Hongzhuang directly closed the door. Sweet Dream stared blankly at the closed door in front of her, and the smile on her face suddenly froze. Knock knock. The knocking on the door sounded again, and Sweet Dream's face was full of unwillingness. According to her thoughts, the success of Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine had a lot to do with her. At least, it could be considered as solving Bailey Hongzhuang's urgent problem. But Bailey Hongzhuang actually just said a perfunctory thank you. She didn't see any gratitude at all. Bailey Hongzhuang opened the door and looked coldly at Sweet Dream in front of her, saying, "Is there anything else? Is there anything else?" Sweet Dream was startled. Her original anger and dissatisfaction were unable to flare up after seeing such a cold Bailey Hongzhuang. "I just want to remind you that your healing medicine was bought by Xiao Yihan from the 15th floor's arena area. He is quite famous in our demon training tower. If the effect of your healing medicine is not good enough, then you have to be careful when you see him in the future. It's best if you don't sell it again." After knowing that the person who bought the healing medicine was actually Xiao Yihan, Sweet Dream was also shocked. She originally thought that the person who bought the healing medicine was at most a cultivator on the 11th floor. After all, with Xiao Yihan's status and wealth, he wouldn't buy this kind of healing medicine. He completely looked down on it. This made Sweet Dream a little worried. Xiao Yihan was not a kind person. If the healing medicine's effect was poor and caused Xiao Yihan to be dissatisfied, then Bailey Hongzhuang shouldn't sell healing medicine in the future. Otherwise, if Xiao Yihan made a move, the one who would be unlucky would be Bailey Hongzhuang. Hearing Sweet Dream's words, Bailey Hongzhuang also understood. She did not expect that these healing medicines would all be bought by one person. However, the higher the status of the other party, the better it would be. She believed that as long as the other party knew the effects of her healing medicine, he would definitely be very interested in it. For Bailey Hongzhuang, the price of 5 spirit stones for a healing medicine was extremely low. But she didn't have any reputation, so it was very difficult for her to raise the price. That's why when she first sold it, the price was so low. Then I'll have to trouble you not to reveal my card number, Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly. Hearing this, the smile in Sweet Dream's eyes deepened. This Bailey Hongzhuang was not ungrateful, at least she knew the importance of what she said. When we sell things, we will only say which floor the seller is from and determine the price based on that. We will not reveal the seller's specific information. You can rest assured about this. Oh. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was still indifferent, and there was no change in her expression. If there is someone who wants to buy my healing medicine in the future, please help me tell them that the price will be increased by 10 times. Bailey Hongzhuang did not think that this price was high. She also noticed that the healing medicines sold by the other doctors in the demon training tower were mostly priced between 30 to 40 spirit stones, while the healing pills were priced between 80 to 100 spirit stones. Chapter 3049. Of course, this was also due to the high price of the devil training tower. If it was any other place, the healing medicine would definitely not be sold at this price. However, at the same time, the price of medicinal ingredients in the devil training tower was also extremely high. Moreover, the commission for the items sold in the devil training tower was simply too high. A 40% commission was definitely impossible in the outside world. After hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Sweet Dream could not help but widen her eyes. There was only one thought in her mind: Bailey Hongzhuang was crazy. 10 times the price? Are you sure? Sweet Dream exclaimed. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. No, if someone wants to buy it again, just tell them that. She believed that Xiao Yihan should be someone who knew the value of the medicine. As long as he used this healing medicine, he would discover that its effects were far better than ordinary healing medicine. Moreover, overall, the price of this healing medicine was more worth it than buying healing pills. No one would complain about having too many spirit stones, and the rich people were the same. You're simply dreaming. Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in disbelief. Her face was faintly tinged with anger. She felt that Bailey Hongzhuang simply did not know what was good for her. You should be thanking the heavens and earth that these healing medicine can be sold. If you still want to use this to make a large sum of money, I can only tell you that it's simply impossible. Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged, completely ignoring Sweet Dream's anger. This woman had looked down on her from the beginning. It was normal for her to say such words at this moment. Whether it's possible or not is not up to you to decide. I said that if someone comes to buy it again, you should tell them that. You should understand this point, right? Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang was still being stubborn, Sweet Dream was also angered. She immediately said, I understand. If someone asks, I will definitely clearly convey your request to them. However, you better not have too much hope. All right. Bailey Hongzhuang faintly left a word and closed the door again. Sweet Dream stared at the tightly shut door in front of her and fell into a daze. The anger in her heart rose. She had come to deliver a piece of good news to Bailey Hongzhuang, but she had been rejected twice. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and said, You seem to have a problem with that girl? A person who looks down on me. No matter what she does, she always thinks that she's giving me charity. But obviously I don't need it. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows, her ink-black phoenix eyes rippling with an indifferent light. If someone who lived on the upper floor told Sweet Dream the same thing at this moment, Sweet Dream would definitely nod and flatter them, but if it was a cultivator like her who lived on the second floor, Sweet Dream didn't believe it from the bottom of her heart. Because of this, the two of them were destined to hate each other. Di Beichen nodded slightly. She has always had such an attitude, but how could she understand my wife's abilities? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. If my judgment is correct, it won't be long before our embarrassing situation improves. She was unwilling to refine pills to sell because it was too much of a waste of time. Spirit stones were only a means for her to increase her cultivation. If she wasted too much time in order to earn spirit stones, the gains would not make up for the losses. My wife is so amazing, I must reward her well. Chapter 3050. Xiao Yihan originally didn't have any expectations for the healing medicine he bought. The price of these 10 portions was only comparable to 1 portion of the healing medicine prescribed by a doctor. Just by thinking about it, he knew how bad the effects of this healing medicine were. Unfortunately, he had no other choice but to buy the healing medicine in front of him. He had a faint guess in his heart. Logically speaking, even if the medicinal pills and healing medicine were always in high demand, they shouldn't have all been bought out. He felt that his opponent must have known that he had a battle today, so he purposely bought all the medicinal pills and healing medicine in order to prevent his injuries from recovering quickly. Since his opponent did it on purpose, he would naturally have discovered that there were people selling healing medicine on the second floor. However, he didn't buy them together, which showed that he also looked down on these healing medicine. Just by thinking about this, Xiao Yihan felt aggrieved. When had he ever fallen to such a state? There were still many wounds on his body that were bleeding. If the situation didn't improve tonight, he would lose to his opponent in terms of aura tomorrow. Going against his opponent in his best condition while injured would greatly increase the chances of failure. Xiao Yihan sighed, his gaze sinister and ruthless. His opponent tricked him, and he would definitely find a way to return the favor in the future. It was a pity that he had a lot of money to bet tomorrow. If he lost like this, it would be a huge loss. Xiao Yihan helplessly picked up the healing medicine that he just bought. He could only try his best now. Once he opened the bottle, Xiao Yihan smelled a faint fragrance that refreshed his heart. His gaze couldn't help but change a little. I didn't expect this healing medicine to be so ineffective, but it smells so good. His initial anger seemed to have dissipated after smelling this fragrance, and his mind returned to calmness. Xiao Yihan sprinkled the medicinal powder on his wound and was still considering how many bottles of this poorly effective healing medicine he should use in order to effectively heal his wound. However, the next scene stunned Xiao Yihan. Because when this healing medicine was sprinkled on his wounds, the bleeding stopped immediately. Xiao Yihan looked at it again in disbelief. Normal healing medicine had the same effect, but this healing medicine was so cheap. It was enough to surprise him that it could achieve this effect. Vaguely, he felt that the speed of this healing medicine was much faster than the healing medicine he used before, but he didn't pay much attention to it just now, so he couldn't make a clear judgment. If Xiao Yihan was already very surprised by this point, then what happened next made him even more surprised. After stopping the bleeding, he found that his wound was slowly forming a scab. According to this situation, it wouldn't take long for his external wounds to completely heal. As for some of the bigger wounds, as long as he sprinkled more healing medicine, the wounds would slowly heal. This slowness was already considered fast in Xiao Yihan's eyes. This kind of speed, even if he used healing medicinal pills, he might not be able to catch up. At this moment, Xiao Yihan immediately realized that the healing medicine he bought was not useless. On the contrary, he had picked up a treasure. Chapter 30:51. In this devil training tower, it was common for cultivators to get injured. It was because of this that the demand for healing pills and medicine always exceeded the supply. The alchemists and doctors who lived in the devil training tower were a group of crafty old fellows. They could produce quite a lot of medicine every day, but they seemed to have discussed it beforehand and only took out a little each time. As a result, it was fine if the price of the medicine was high, but it was also often unavailable. This was what made people dissatisfied. 8 or 9 out of 10 cultivators who participated in the challenge tournament would be injured. Internal injuries could be healed through cultivation, but external injuries had to be treated with medicine. Otherwise, the continuous bleeding would affect the body's condition. Moreover, they were a group of rough men. How would they know how to bandage their own wounds to stop the bleeding? The only thing they could rely on was the healing pills. After discovering that the injuries on his body were gradually healing, Xiao Yihan looked at the healing pills in his hand and couldn't help but feel puzzled. Based on the effects of the healing pills, even if they were sold at the same price as the healing pills, it wouldn't be a big deal. 5 spirit stones per bottle, this price was simply giving it away for free. Moreover, according to the introduction of the woman at the counter, it seemed that the first 3 bottles of healing pills were free. Xiao Yihan's gaze gradually became sharp and bright. He wasn't a stupid person. On the contrary, he was able to reach his current reputation and position in the devil training tower. This was enough to prove that he was a very smart person. In the beginning he didn't understand this, but after thinking about it carefully, he immediately understood. The reason why the other party set the first 3 bottles free was to let people understand the effects of the pills. After all, the healing pills of a cultivator who lived on the second floor weren't very convincing. If it was a normal person, they would choose to ignore it. If it wasn't for the fact that he couldn't buy any more healing pills, he definitely wouldn't put such pills in his eyes. Thinking about it, tomorrow's opponent had the same idea as him, so they ignored the healing pills on the second floor and let him pick up a treasure. However, he still didn't understand one thing. The cultivator who sold the healing pills lived on the second floor and didn't live in the alchemist and doctor area. This proved that he was neither an alchemist nor a doctor. Then why would he sell the healing pills? Could it be that he was so poor that he couldn't even afford a room, so he could only sell the medicine he had on him? When this possibility appeared in Xiao Yihan's mind, even he himself could not believe it. What kind of state would it be to be so poor? I wonder if that cultivator still has any more of this healing medicine. I will definitely go to the counter tomorrow and ask. Xiao Yihan made up his mind. If the other party still had more healing medicine, then he would definitely buy all of it for himself. It was impossible to have too many of such treasures. The next day, when Xiao Yihan's opponent, Lu Mingxiu, saw that Xiao Yihan had recovered to his original appearance on the stage, his face couldn't help but be filled with astonishment. According to his understanding, Xiao Yihan had already used up all of his healing pills, and all of the healing pills that were sold yesterday had already been taken by him. How did Xiao Yihan heal? Lu Mingxiu was shocked. Could it be that Xiao Yihan had purposely guarded against him and told him false information? Chapter 3052. Xiao Yihan naturally noticed the change in Lu Mingxiu's expression and immediately made a judgment in his heart. It seemed that his guess was not wrong. The reason he was in such a situation yesterday was largely related to Lu Mingxiu. If he hadn't coincidentally bought the healing medicine from the cultivator on the second floor, he would have really been tricked by Lu Mingxiu today. However, looking at Lu Mingxiu's shocked expression, he felt unusually happy. This proved that the heavens were still on his side. Lu Mingxiu had calculated everything, but he still missed one thing. In the end, Xiao Yihan was still the winner of this match. Looking at the unwilling Lu Mingxiu in front of him, Xiao Yihan only felt that his mood was extremely good. He proudly raised his eyebrows at Lu Mingxiu and said with a smile, "No matter how you think about it, you still missed one thing. Instead of using your brain on this kind of crooked path, I advise you to improve your own strength." Lu Mingxiu, who was already extremely unresigned, became even more furious after hearing Xiao Yihan's words. "Every dog has its day. I only won once. Don't be too arrogant. The winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. What can you do to me if I'm arrogant?" Xiao Yihan sneered. Lu Mingxiu fiercely glared at Xiao Yihan, then turned and left the stage. After returning to his room, Lu Mingxiu couldn't take this lying down the more he thought about it. He clearly heard Xiao Yihan telling his friend that he had run out of healing medicine and could only go to the counter to buy more after the match. That was why he bought all the healing medicine one step ahead of time. This way his chances of winning would increase a bit. He originally thought that he had tricked Xiao Yihan, but he didn't expect that he would be tricked by Xiao Yihan instead. This feeling made Lu Mingxiu extremely unhappy. After thinking about it, Lu Mingxiu still decided to go to the counter and ask. He had to find out whether he had fallen into Xiao Yihan's trap and wasted his efforts, or if Xiao Yihan had bought the healing medicine from somewhere else. In front of the counter. "Did Xiao Yihan buy the healing medicine from you yesterday?" Lu Mingxiu asked. When the woman at the counter heard Lu Mingxiu's words, her expression immediately became awkward. "Young Master Lu, you've been in the Demon Training Tower for so long, so you should know the rules of the Demon Training Tower. We are not allowed to reveal information about other guests. I'm just asking you if he bought any healing medicine. It's not a secret, so why can't you answer me?" Lu Mingxiu's expression was slightly cold, and his voice was filled with displeasure. His cold gaze seemed to say that as long as the woman in front of him did not answer, he would not let her have an easy time. The woman at the counter couldn't help but panic. She felt that she was really too unlucky. Yesterday Xiao Yihan came here and made a big fuss. It was not easy to solve this problem. She did not expect Lu Mingxiu to come looking for trouble again today. She could not afford to offend either of these two people. If she told this news to Lu Mingxiu and Xiao Yihan found out, she would still be in trouble. This was really a dilemma. "Young Master Lu, if I tell you, young Master Xiao will definitely blame me when he finds out," the woman said submissively. "You mean that you're more afraid of Xiao Yihan than of me?" Lu Mingxiu raised his eyebrows and asked. As soon as these words came out, the woman immediately realized that the situation was not good. She quickly waved her hand and said, "No, that's not what I meant." Chapter 3053. The woman was shocked by Lu Mingshu's fierceness, and the panic on her face became even more obvious. She was constantly weighing how to solve this problem. She knew the result of today's battle between Lu Mingshu and Xiao Yihan. In terms of strength, Xiao Yihan was still slightly stronger. If she offended Xiao Yihan because of Lu Mingshu, it would not be a wise move. Most importantly, even if she did not reveal Xiao Yihan's situation now, Xiao Yihan would not help her. Without any backing, she had no way to go against Lu Mingshu at all. Just then, a voice suddenly sounded behind Lu Mingshu, with a hint of mockery and sarcasm. Lu Mingshu, even if you lost to me in the battle, there's no need to vent your emotions on a mere counter girl, right? Xiao Yihan smiled at Lu Mingshu. He came to the counter because he wanted to know more about the cultivator who sold the healing medicine on the second floor. If he had the chance, he wanted to buy more healing medicine. In his opinion, his smooth victory today was partly due to that cultivator's contribution. He was very interested in getting to know him. When Lu Mingshu turned around and saw Xiao Yihan, his face instantly darkened. Xiao Yihan, what I want to do is my business. I don't need you to judge. Xiao Yihan laughed mockingly. Looks like it was indeed your doing that I couldn't buy the healing medicine yesterday. I didn't expect your methods to become more and more despicable. Lu Mingshu's gaze was sinister and vicious. His entire face had changed from rage to coldness. You just won today by luck. Don't be so proud. I'll take back what you took away soon. Xiao Yihan shrugged nonchalantly. Up to you. But it won't be easy for you to take it back with your little ability. Lu Mingshu glared fiercely at Xiao Yihan. The viciousness and coldness in his eyes were enough to send chills down one's spine. However, the person standing opposite him was Xiao Yihan, so he did not feel anything at all. Xiao Yihan, don't just talk about me. Didn't you purposely release fake news to make me do this? Lu Mingshu sneered. Xiao Yihan usually thought that he was very righteous, but in reality he still used some tricks behind the scenes. Then you're wrong. Just because you're like this doesn't mean I'm like this. Don't confuse people like you with me. Looking at Xiao Yihan's face that had a clear conscience, Lu Mingshu's gaze gradually changed. Could it be that he had guessed wrong? The news that there was no healing medicine wasn't fake news that Xiao Yihan released, but that Xiao Yihan had solved the problem in other ways? However, Lu Mingshu did not continue asking. He turned around and left. He had to get to the bottom of this matter. If there was someone who was secretly helping Lu Mingshu, then he had to get to the bottom of it. After seeing Lu Mingshu leave, Xiao Yihan looked at the woman behind the counter and said, "Help me investigate the cultivator who sold healing medicine on the second floor yesterday." The woman at the counter, who was originally in a difficult situation, finally managed to extricate herself from the predicament after seeing Xiao Yihan arrive. When she heard Xiao Yihan's question, her expression couldn't help but become troubled again. Chapter 3054. However, the expected rage did not come. Xiao Yihan's voice was as calm as ever. Right, I forgot about that. Then help me ask the counter on the second floor and see if that cultivator has any similar healing medicine for sale. If there is, contact me immediately. I want to buy it. Once he said that, the woman at the counter could not help but look at Xiao Yihan in surprise. Her eyes were filled with astonishment. She simply could not believe that Xiao Yihan would be so easy to talk to today. It was completely unlike his usual personality. Okay, I'll immediately contact the counter on the second floor. Xiao Yihan nodded, then placed a few spirit stones on the counter and said, "Your performance today was very good." With that, Xiao Yihan turned and left. The woman at the counter stared blankly at Xiao Yihan's back as he left. Her brain could not react for a moment, but after she reacted, her face could not help but blossom into a wide smile. Ever since Sweet Dream was rejected by Bailey Hongzhuang twice that day, her heart was filled with disgust towards Bailey Hongzhuang. She completely did not know where Bailey Hongzhuang's confidence came from. Could it be that she thought that the healing medicine she took out would be better than the healing medicine made by an alchemist? That was simply too laughable. She only went to specially remind Bailey Hongzhuang, but Bailey Hongzhuang did not notice her good intentions at all. Xiao Yihan was not a newcomer to the Devil Training Tower. If Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine did not have a good effect or affected Xiao Yihan in any way, then the unlucky one would be Bailey Hongzhuang. Just thinking about Bailey Hongzhuang's confident appearance made her angry, 10 times more. Simply a fool's dream. She wanted to see just who would come to buy Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine. Just as Sweet Dream was dreaming about this matter, suddenly, a message came from the 15th floor. Xiao Yihan asked if there were any more healing medicine. You wanted to buy it? When Sweet Dream heard this, her first reaction was that she had misheard. This was simply impossible. Are you sure? Does young Master Xiao really want to buy that healing medicine? No, young Master Xiao told me personally. Judging from the situation, the healing medicine you sold seems to be quite effective. Quickly help me ask that cultivator if he has any more healing medicine. Since young Master Xiao is in a good mood today, I will give him a reply as soon as possible. Sweet Dream stared at the woman in front of her in a daze. She really doubted that all of this was real. Unfortunately, when she pinched her arm, it really did hurt. All of this was actually real. Sweet Dream, what are you thinking about? Are there no more healing medicines for sale? Hearing this, Sweet Dream finally reacted. She shook her head and said, that's not it. It's just that the price has changed. What changes? That cultivator said that if someone wanted to buy this healing medicine again, the price would have to be increased by 10 times. Sweet Dream's face was a little embarrassed. She really didn't expect that there would be a day when she would pass on these words. 10 times? Sweet Dream nodded. She said so. Isn't this sudden tenfold price a little too high? Do you want to go and ask again? The woman had a difficult expression. Yesterday, a bottle of healing medicine was only 5 spirit stones. Now it had become 50 spirit stones. She felt that Xiao Yihan would most likely not agree. Chapter 30:55. Yesterday when I gave the spirit stones to that cultivator, she said that directly. Judging from her attitude, I don't think there's any possibility of bargaining. Sweet Dream recalled Bailey Hongzhuang's confident look. It was as if she had no intention of changing the price at all. In fact, until now, she still found it hard to believe that Bailey Hongzhuang was right. Xiao Yihan really went back and forth to buy healing medicine. This was too strange. There were still healing pills and medicine sold in the alchemist and doctor area today, but Xiao Yihan specially came to buy Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine. Could it really be because Bailey Hongzhuang's healing medicine was very effective? Sweet Dream, help me ask again, the woman said. Why don't we go together? Okay. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen had just returned from the arena area when they saw 2 figures standing in front of their door from afar. It seemed that they had been waiting for a while. Sweet Dream's heart was very conflicted. She had clearly shown her resolute attitude in front of Bailey Hongzhuang yesterday. Wasn't coming over today equivalent to slapping her own face? What's the matter? At this moment, a familiar voice sounded from behind Sweet Dream. Sweet Dream couldn't help but be startled and quickly turned her head. As expected, she saw Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen behind her. Her expression immediately became a little awkward. Young Master Di, it's like this. I'm the receptionist on the 15th floor. Yesterday, my customer bought your healing medicine. He wants to buy some more today, so he asked me to ask if there's any left. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly, her calm face not showing any surprise. Yes, but you should know the price. How much do you want? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She had already guessed that no matter who saw the effect of her healing medicine, they would be very interested in buying it back. Di Beichen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang, who was full of confidence, and the smile in his eyes deepened. His wife's medical skills were really amazing. It had only been a short day and the other party had already come knocking on their door. Seeing that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't have any intention of negotiating the price, Sweet Dream couldn't help but look at the receptionist. She had already guessed this. Young Master D, I came here to ask if you can lower the price a little? Yesterday you sold a bottle of healing medicine for 5 spirit stones, and today it's 50 spirit stones. Isn't this asking for a sky-high price? The woman couldn't help but ask. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the woman indifferently. Let me ask, is there any healing medicine that only costs 5 spirit stones in the entire Devil Training Pagoda? As soon as these words were spoken, the woman at the counter couldn't help but be stunned. To be honest, there really wasn't such a thing. If I didn't live on the 2nd floor, no one would believe what I took out and I wouldn't sell it at such a price. However, that's only the first batch. The current price is 50 spirit stones. If you can accept it, then buy it. If you can't, then forget it. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's unyielding attitude, the woman couldn't help but frown. Young Master D, from what I know, the price of this healing medicine is usually around 30 to 40 spirit stones. Isn't 50 spirit stones a little too much? Chapter 30:56. What's wrong with me setting the price of my things? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Didn't Sweet Dream say that the buyer yesterday was very rich? Why can't he accept this price? She was very confident in the healing medicine she made, and believed that as long as the other party personally experienced the effects of the healing medicine, they would definitely not think that the price was too expensive. However, she did not expect that the other party would actually find someone to bargain today. In that case, the other party was not some rich person. It was not a wise move for them to buy all the healing medicine in one go. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, the woman at the counter could not help but be stunned. She originally thought that after her negotiation, the other party should have no problem lowering the price, but she did not expect the other party's attitude to be so unyielding. Instead, she questioned Xiao Yihan's financial ability. At this moment, she finally understood why Sweet Dream was unwilling to discuss the price with Bailey Hongzhuang. In fact, she was also very unwilling. I haven't told him the price yet. I just came to ask for your opinion. If you can't lower the price, I believe that young Master Xiao will not accept it. Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood. It was not the other party who felt that it was expensive, but the two women in front of her felt that it was expensive. If he won't accept it, then so be it. My price is set here. If he can't accept it, then don't buy it. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice became cold. If there's nothing else, I'm going to enter the house. The woman at the counter and Sweet Dream looked at each other, both of them feeling helpless. Ignoring the two, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen directly walked into the house, and the door was once again mercilessly closed. Bang! The woman at the counter and Sweet Dream stared blankly at the tightly closed door in front of them, their expressions revealing a bit of annoyance. Sweet Dream, didn't you say that this guy is very short on money? Then why didn't he do the business when there was a chance? The woman at the counter could not understand. Basically, all the cultivators who lived on the second floor were people who were not rich. Logically speaking, with this kind of opportunity to earn spirit stones, they should not reject it. Sweet Dream shook her head, her expression was filled with a bit of helplessness. They did act like they were very short on money, but I don't know why his attitude is so unyielding on this matter. It seems that it is impossible to get him to lower the price. You should just tell young Master Xiao the price. Young Master Xiao has no choice but to accept it. This guy is so arrogant, he should be disappointed. The woman at the counter nodded. We can only do this now. I just hope that young Master Xiao won't be angry with me. Sweet Dream patted the shoulder of the woman behind the counter and expressed some sympathy for her. The higher one worked on the higher floor, the less one dared to offend people. In comparison, her work at the counter on the second floor was much easier, but the pay was correspondingly much lower. 10 times? After hearing the counters that? S right sweets SS's. S, is, est, S with the is that. Sweets with ye. TTSSS? SSSS? S, SS sweets SS? Chapter 3057. If it had been the same price as before, Xiao Yihan would have thought that there was a conspiracy behind it. There must be a reason behind it. No one would complain about having too much money, not to mention that the item itself was worth more than 5 spirit stones. He now understood that the other party must have felt that the price of the healing medicine was far more than 5 spirit stones. Unfortunately, it was impossible to sell it on the second floor, so they could only think of such a method. Since the lady at the counter was unwilling to lower the price even after bargaining, it could be seen that the other party was also a proud person. In other words, the other party was very confident in the healing medicine. However, he also felt that the healing medicine's effect was not excessive to ask for such a price. Even if it was a little higher, it would not be excessive to ask for the same price as the healing pill. The other party did not ask for an exorbitant price, but chose the middle price between the healing pill and the healing medicine. This proved that the other party was also a straightforward person, and he was somewhat interested in the seller. The lady at the counter carefully sized up Xiao Yihan. She originally thought that Xiao Yihan would be very angry after hearing this news, but she did not expect Xiao Yihan to only fall into silence, which made her a little confused. Go and tell the other party that I accept this price. Also, tell her that if she is willing, I am very happy to be friends with her, Xiao Yihan said with a smile. This kind of price was not a problem for him at all. Moreover, just the bet that she won from Lu Mingshu today was already an extremely high price. Seeing that Xiao Yihan agreed without hesitation, the lady at the counter could not help but be stunned. She stared at the former in a daze, wondering if she had heard wrongly. Xiao Yihan actually did not refuse? The price suddenly increased by 10 times and he actually accepted it so easily? For a moment, the lady at the counter could not understand. Her mind could not help but recall Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant and unyielding appearance. Could it be that she had made a mistake? Young Master Xiao, how many portions do you need? The lady at the counter asked slowly. Xiao Yihan thought for a moment and said, let's buy 50 portions first. Once these words came out, the lady was stunned again. 50 portions, that would be 2,500 spirit stones. Xiao Yihan was actually so generous for such a big business deal. Most importantly, was the healing medicine's effect so good? Was it worth Xiao Yihan buying so many at once? However, the lady at the counter only thought about it in her heart and did not dare to ask at all. Okay, I'll go now. When Sweet Dreams saw the woman at the counter come down again, a trace of doubt appeared on her face. She hurriedly asked, what did young Master Xiao say? Young Master Xiao said that he wants to buy 50 sets of healing medicine. The woman at the counter said awkwardly. Sweet Dream couldn't help but be stunned when she heard this. She asked in astonishment, what did you say? Sweet Dream, I think we might have made a mistake. Although young Master Xiao was surprised when he heard the price, he immediately accepted it. In my opinion, I'm afraid that the effect of the healing medicine is really very good. Otherwise, young Master Xiao wouldn't have agreed. The woman at the counter understood at this moment. Xiao Yihan usually bought many things from her, so she had a certain understanding of Xiao Yihan's personality. At least, Xiao Yihan had never bought so many healing medicines at once when he bought them from other pharmacists and doctors. Chapter 3058. After getting this result, Sweet Dream's mood was also extremely complicated. She suddenly couldn't understand Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, Bailey Hongzhuang was clearly a poor person, and no one thought that he could take out anything good. So later, when Bailey Hongzhuang was unusually confident, she only wanted to ridicule him. Now that she got Xiao Yihan's answer, she carefully thought about what happened before and felt that perhaps she was biased against Bailey Hongzhuang, causing her to make the wrong judgment. However, Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't a doctor at all. Could it be that young Master Xiao is in a good mood after winning the competition today, so he did this on purpose? Sweet Dream couldn't help but ask. The woman at the counter thought for a moment, then shook her head and said, it shouldn't be. Even if young Master Xiao is in a good mood, he wouldn't waste such a large amount of spirit stones. However, young Master Xiao did reward me with some spirit stones today. Let's not think about this for now. Help me buy 50 portions of healing medicine from young Master D. Hearing this, Sweet Dream's face revealed a very difficult expression. Everything that happened today was really making her more embarrassed than the last time. When Bailey Hongzhuang heard that Xiao Yihan wanted to buy 50 portions of healing medicine at once, her eyes flashed with a touch of surprise. It seemed that what Sweet Dream said before was true. This Xiao Yihan was indeed a generous person. 2,500 spirit stones. After deducting the high processing fee charged by the Demon Training Tower, she still had 1,500 spirit stones left. This was enough for them to cultivate for a while. I know, I'll leave it to you tomorrow. Bailey Hongzhuang left a faint sentence and didn't say anything else. Sweet Dream also tactfully left. Beichen, it seems that we don't have to worry about pills for cultivation for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes curved as she smiled at D. Beichen. D. Beichen gave a thumbs up. My wife has always been the best. Beichen, actually, I have an idea. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at D. Beichen with hesitation in her eyes. Noticing the change in Bailey Hongzhuang's expression, D. Beichen's eyes also showed a trace of seriousness. He immediately pulled Bailey Hongzhuang's hand and let her sit on his lap. His hands circled around Bailey Hongzhuang's slender waist as he said, what decision did my darling wife make? Tell me, I'll help you judge. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. She really felt very good to be with D. Beichen like this. Do you think we can completely trust Xiren and the others? Bailey Hongzhuang said slowly with some hesitation, as if she was considering her words. My wife, there's no need to have any misgivings between us. You just have to tell me your thoughts. D. Beichen's gaze was gentle and doting as he kneaded Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand and smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I think the effects of cultivation in the oceanic world are very good. The speed of cultivation is also relatively fast. Xiren and Yingying don't have a chance to fight right now. If they can also come to the oceanic world and cultivate with us, the speed of their cultivation should be much faster. However, the secret of the Chaos Ring. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at D. Beichen halfway through her words. She believed that D. Beichen already understood her meaning. Chapter 3059. In terms of trust, Di Baichen had absolute trust in Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. They had been friends since childhood, and this time Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had specially come to Penglai Island for him. Although part of the reason was that they wanted to come here to gain experience, Di Baichen knew very well that if it wasn't for his physique, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying wouldn't have to take such a big risk. They could have waited until their cultivation had reached the 5th level of the Purple Realm before coming here. Then they wouldn't have needed to hide here and hide, afraid that someone would find out about their cultivation. He had also thought about the problem that Bailey Hongzhuang had mentioned. If when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying could improve together with them, that would be the best. However, the more he understood the magic of the Chaos Ring, the more he understood how tempting the Chaos Ring was to cultivators. The greed of human nature, no one could deny it. Even if he believed that when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying weren't that kind of people, he was still selfish when it came to Hongzhuang. He didn't want Bailey Hongzhuang to take any risks because she was the most precious treasure in his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang looked deeply at Di Baichen. In fact, she also understood Di Baichen's thoughts. With the brotherhood between Di Baichen and Wen Xiren, this problem was originally superfluous. She was even more clear that the reason why Di Baichen hadn't said this was because he was worried about her safety. However, she felt that when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying had treated them wholeheartedly, so they should be trustworthy. Baichen, I know you're worried about me. If the Chaos Ring was yours, you would have told them long ago. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Di Baichen. Her pitch-black phoenix eyes met with those deep eyes like the sea. In an instant, she saw into the other's heart. Listening to Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Di Baichen fell into silence. Indeed, if he was the one taking the risk, he would have already told Xiren. Looking at Di Baichen's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang understood everything. She turned around and sat on Di Baichen's lap, facing him. Her crystal-clear eyes were full of seriousness. Baichen, I think sometimes I need to take the first step to gain true friendship and trust. What do you think? Di Baichen's dark eyes flickered with starry light, as if they were filled with endless hope, but they made Di Baichen's heart tremble. I haven't known Yingying and Xiren for a long time, but we both care about the same person, and that is you. I believe that this is a bet that I won't lose, so I want to give it a try. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice gradually became more and more certain. In reality, she had already made her decision when she had first mentioned her plan. Di Baichen looked deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang. His large hand held Bailey Hongzhuang's small hand tightly as he said in a deep voice, "My wife, you don't have to do this for me. I understand. Perhaps I'm being greedy. I also want to be part of a friendship like yours." Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a radiant smile. She had kept this secret for many years. Now, even though her cultivation could not be considered extremely powerful, she still had the ability to protect herself. Even if someone wanted to snatch her Chaos Ring away, it would not be an easy task. Chapter 3060. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang gave Sweet Dream the 50 sets of healing medicine that she had made. Although 50 sets of healing medicine was a lot, with Bailey Hongzhuang's ability, it didn't take long to make them. Moreover, with Xiao He and Xiao Bai helping out, the speed was much faster. Sweet Dream looked at Bailey Hongzhuang in front of her, and her thoughts were extremely complicated. Especially after seeing the coldness on Bailey Hongzhuang's face, she felt even more upset. She still remembered that when she saw Bailey Hongzhuang before, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't treat her like this. However, it seemed that her recent actions had really offended Bailey Hongzhuang. Every time she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, she could feel the coldness on Bailey Hongzhuang's face become thicker. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even want to look at her. When she first saw Bailey Hongzhuang, Sweet Dream had a good impression of this handsome man in front of her. Later, when she found out that Bailey Hongzhuang was just a poor ghost, Sweet Dream's behavior was so mocking. Because she felt very disappointed. Now, looking at the spirit stones that Bailey Hongzhuang earned from selling the healing medicine, she felt that the situation seemed to be different from what she had imagined. 50 sets of healing medicine, and Bailey Hongzhuang took them out just like that. Sweet Dream had a faint guess in her mind. Could Bailey Hongzhuang be a doctor? After all, very few cultivators would bring so many healing medicine at once, let alone sell them here. It wasn't that she hadn't seen some strange alchemists or doctors. Their actions were often incomprehensible to ordinary people. Could it be that Bailey Hongzhuang was one of them? If that was really the case, then she really misjudged him. Bailey Hongzhuang saw Sweet Dream staring at her blankly and couldn't help coughing twice to remind her. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's coughing, Sweet Dream returned to her senses and blushed. "Young Master D, each of these 50 sets of healing pills is priced at 50 spirit stones. so it's a total of 2,500 spirit stones. After deducting the handling fee, there's still 1,500 spirit stones left. The spirit stones are all here. Take a look and see if they are correct. Bailey Hongzhuang took the Qinghuan pouch from Sweet Dream's hands and glanced at it. After confirming that it was enough, she nodded and said, "I'll have to trouble you." Ever since she came to Penglai Island, Bailey Hongzhuang had never received so many spiritual stones. Thinking that she could cultivate well without worrying about the consumption of spiritual stones, Bailey Hongzhuang was in a very good mood. Young Master D. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's departing figure, Sweet Dream couldn't help but call out. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around with a trace of surprise in her black eyes. "Is there something else?" Sweet Dream was stunned and the embarrassment on her face became even more intense. She couldn't help but say, "No, nothing." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and the doubt in her eyes deepened. Then she left. Today Sweet Dream was acting strangely. She couldn't understand what was going on. "Master, do you think Sweet Dream likes you?" Not long after she left, Xiao Hei's gossipy heart was already ignited. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. "That's impossible. What kind of person have the women in the demon training tower not seen? My current appearance can't be considered very handsome, let alone a poor ghost." Chapter 3061. Bailey Hongzhuang reached out and flicked Xiao Hei's forehead. "I didn't expect you to be so concerned about this kind of thing." Xiao Hei chuckled. "Aren't I just concerned about Master? Although that Sweet Dream is usually quite annoying, she's clearly concerned about Master. Maybe she's interested in Beichen or Wenziren. A fake man like me shouldn't have that kind of charm." Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. She was currently disguised as a man. Although she thought that her disguise was quite good and that no one would discover that she was a woman, she had never thought that she would be so charming. That's not necessarily true. Everyone has different taste. Xiao Hei chuckled, then asked Xiao Bai, "What do you think?" "I don't know either." Xiao Bai shook her head, looking confused. "But I do think that Sweet Dream is a little strange today." "Why are you thinking so much? We don't have anything to do with her." Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was indifferent. "It's just that Sweet Dream happened to be working as a counter on the second floor recently. After a few days she'll move to a different floor and won't be seen anymore." When they returned to the house, Bailey Hongzhuang called Wenziren and Shengguan Yingying over. "Hongzhuang, why did you call us over?" Shengguan Yingying's face was rippling with a faint smile. "Ziren and I are preparing to head to the arena area." Today was the day that she and Ziren were going to the arena area. When she first went to the arena area, she was very unaccustomed to it. But now she was familiar with it. Going there again was a walk in the park. Of course, even so, she didn't like the arena area at all. "Yingying, don't go to the arena area for the time being." Bailey Hongzhuang spoke up. Shengguan Yingying was a little surprised. Based on their current situation, their main source of spirit stones was still the betting in the arena area. "I sold some healing medicine today and just so happened to earn some spirit stones. It's enough for us to use for a while." Bailey Hongzhuang winked, her eyes revealing a hint of playfulness. Hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Shengguan Yingying and Wenziren's faces filled with curiosity. "How much did you earn from selling healing medicine?" "A total of 2,500 spirit stones. It's not too much. After we got it, we're only left with 1,500 spirit stones. But it's enough for us to use." Bailey Hongzhuang. 2,500 spirit stones? We've been in the arena area for so long and we've only earned 100 spirit stones a day. Hongzhuang, you've earned 1,500 spirit stones a day. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. The Devil Training Tower's demand for healing medicine is quite high and the price is also quite high. Ziren gave Bailey Hongzhuang a thumbs up and then said to Di Beichen, "Beichen, you've really found a good wife. Her methods, her ability, tsk. Of course." Di Beichen reached out and hugged Bailey Hongzhuang, his face filled with pride. Seeing Di Beichen so proud, Ziren's face couldn't help but darken. "You're really shameless." Di Beichen shrugged indifferently. "I know you're envious." Ziren sneered and hugged Shengguan Yingying's shoulder. "Yingying, let's not lower ourselves to his level." Chapter 3062. With their current situation, if they didn't have to worry about using spirit stones and could focus on cultivation, it wouldn't take long for them to break through to the 4th level of the Purple Realm. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen looked at each other, then shook their heads. No, we'll go somewhere else to cultivate today. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying couldn't help but be startled when they heard this. Then where are we going to cultivate? Don't tell me we're going to the cultivation area? Even if we have a bit more spirit stones now, we can't afford to go to the cultivation area, not to mention our level isn't high enough to go there. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying couldn't think of any other place to cultivate on the entire demonic refining island apart from the cultivation area. I'm going to take you to a special place to cultivate, but this place is my secret. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes stared at Xiren and Shangguan Yingying. Her voice was steady and certain. Xiren subconsciously looked at Di Beichen. Di Beichen also nodded, his expression solemn and serious. Seeing this, Shangguan Yingying and Xiren both realized that the situation wasn't simple. Otherwise, Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang wouldn't have such expressions. Xiren, Yingying, I hope you can help Hongzhuang keep this secret. Di Beichen said in a deep voice. Bailey Hongzhuang's words had convinced him. This was a risky move, but if it succeeded, the four of them would be able to quickly improve together, and their friendship would become even stronger. Xiren and Shangguan Yingying looked at each other. They already had some guesses in their minds. It seemed that this was related to Hongzhuang's secret. Even if they didn't know what kind of secret this was, with Xiren's understanding of Di Beichen, they knew that this secret was not simple. If that wasn't the case, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen would have already told them. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang and Shangguan Yingying's serious expressions, Xiren and Shangguan Yingying didn't really care about what the secret was. Just the fact that Bailey Hongzhuang was willing to take such a risk and tell them the secret was already something very meaningful. Hongzhuang, Di Beichen, don't worry, we'll definitely keep this secret. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Of course we'll believe you. The next second, Bailey Hongzhuang's mind moved, and Shangguan Yingying and Xiren were surprised to find that a mysterious black and white palace appeared in front of them. Magical colors flowed around the palace, revealing a mysterious and profound aura. The environment they were in was completely different from before. This caused Shangguan Yingying and Li Wuyo's eyes to widen, their faces filled with shock. This is, come with me. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang took the lead and walked into the palace. Xiren glanced at Di Beichen. Di Beichen raised his eyebrows and gestured for them to go in and take a look. When Xiren and Shangguan Yingying saw the various environments inside the palace, the shock in their hearts grew stronger and stronger. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have a palace like this. This was just too amazing. This is a small world that I own. Bailey Hongzhuang said frankly. Shangguan Yingying stared blankly at the scene around her and said, this is really too shocking. It's unbelievable. Chapter 3063. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded, then shook her head. We have to go to another small world to cultivate. There are demonic beasts there that can increase our battle prowess. Moreover, the time flow inside is 1/3 of the outside world. In other words, 3 days inside is equivalent to 1 day outside. This way we'll have more time to cultivate. Following Bailey Hongzhuang's words, when Xiren and Shangguan Yingying's mouths were already agape. They were so shocked that they did not know what to say. There's another small world other than this one? When Xiren said in astonishment. That's right. When Xiren rubbed his head and paused for a moment before he said, wait a moment. Give me some time to digest this. Isn't this secret of yours a little too shocking? I've never seen such an abnormal thing. Xiren's eyes were filled with shock. He felt that all of this was inconceivable. If he did not clearly know that everything before his eyes was real, he would only feel that this was a dream. As the young sect master of the Cloud Sword sect, he had seen a lot of the world. Naturally, he knew that some cultivators would have some mysterious tools to help them cultivate. However, everything that Bailey Hongzhuang had displayed was simply too powerful. It was so powerful that he could not believe it at all. He believed that not to mention him, even his knowledgeable old man would definitely be unable to believe it when he saw this scene. Di Beichen patted Xiren's shoulder and revealed an empathetic smile. When he first found out about this, his thoughts were exactly the same as Xiren's. From a certain point of view, the Chaos Ring possessing such an ability was already a heaven-defying existence. At this moment, Shangguan Yingying was completely dumbfounded. After she understood everything, she could not help but pull Bailey Hongzhuang's hand with a face full of nervousness. Hongzhuang, are you crazy? If such a huge secret were to be leaked out, who knows how many cultivators would be envious of it? You could lose your life at any time. How dare you say it out loud? Listening to Shangguan Yingying's words, the smile in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes couldn't help but deepen. She understood that she had won the bet. Because I trust you. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Because I believe in you. Shengguan Yingying and Wen Xiren couldn't help but be startled by his words. Their hearts seemed to have been touched, and an indescribable warmth spread through them. When they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang again, their eyes were even brighter. If they had such a treasure, they probably wouldn't dare to tell others about it. It wasn't that he didn't trust her, but without enough trust, he definitely couldn't tell her. In this world, how many life-and-death friendships had collapsed because of a single treasure? In order to snatch the treasure, friends and brothers who had killed each other were simply too many to count. They never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang's trust in them would reach such a level. This made them feel flattered, and at the same time, they also felt a heavy sense of responsibility. When Bailey Hongzhuang decided to tell them this secret, Bailey Hongzhuang had already begun a huge gamble. She was gambling with her own life. In the face of such a huge gamble, how could they let Bailey Hongzhuang lose? Chapter 3064. Previously, Wen Xiren and Shengguan Yingying also treated Bailey Hongzhuang as a good friend, but that was mainly because of Di Beichen. Di Beichen was a good friend they had grown up with. As Di Beichen's wife, Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Yingying were naturally a group. However, compared to their absolute trust in Di Beichen, there was still a distance between them and Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang was so unreserved towards them, it meant that Bailey Hongzhuang had enough trust and sincerity towards them. If they still did not treat Bailey Hongzhuang wholeheartedly, then they were not human. In the face of such a treasure, anyone would feel envious, but this thing belonged to their good friend. Whether it was Wen Xiren or Shengguan Yingying, they would not have any other thoughts. Because they had to be worthy of that trust. Hongzhuang, thank you. Shengguan Yingying stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, her bright and clear eyes filled with sincerity and deep affection. At this time she would not say anything else, but she was really grateful that Bailey Hongzhuang could trust her so much. Because this trust was really precious. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled sweetly. She already understood Shengguan Yingying's meaning. Xiren did not say anything, he just glanced at Di Beichen, and Di Beichen also understood. After being brothers for so many years, many things could be understood with just a glance. No one said anything else about this matter, but at this moment, silence spoke louder than words. Everyone seemed to have enough tacit understanding. Now let's go to the cultivation place. Di Beichen smiled faintly. The situation in front of him was undoubtedly the best situation he wanted to see. Hearing this, Wen Xiren and Shengguan Yingying looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and Shengguan Yingying expectantly, and said, "Take us to have a look, I also want to know what kind of good cultivation place it is." Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang and the other three appeared in the ocean world together. Xiren and Shengguan Yingying looked at the vast sea in front of them. Their faces could not help but be filled with deep surprise. "My God, this is your small world? I feel like I've returned to the days when I was drifting on the sea in front of Penglai Island." Xiren looked at everything in front of him. This environment was really not an ordinary kind of familiar environment. It is indeed very similar, but this is a different place, and the monster beasts here are different from the monster beasts we usually see at the bottom of the sea. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. After these days of exploration and cultivation in the ocean world with Di Beichen, they found that this place was the same as the desert world. The monster beasts here were different from the monster beasts outside. If the monster beasts in the desert world were said to be extremely strong, the monster beasts here could be said to be extremely slippery and good at fighting in groups. Fortunately, Di Beichen, and the three beasts had a large number of people, and were responsible for facing the monster beasts. It was not easy to win. After almost every battle, they were exhausted, only feeling that all the strength in their bodies had been sucked out. Fortunately, they had spirit stones to help them quickly recover their cultivation, and the effect of using spirit stones to cultivate was also the best. Chapter 3065. Not the same? Shengguan Yingying was a little confused. Weren't there only so many species of demonic beasts in the entire Xingqian continent? Even in a small world, this situation should not be an exception. Looking at Shengguan Yingying's expression, Bailey Hongzhuang understood what Shengguan Yingying was thinking. She could not help but smile and said, "You will understand when you see it in a while." "Beichen, I was wondering why your cultivation speed was so fast. It turns out that there is such a good place to cultivate." Xiren narrowed his eyes and looked at Di Beichen with ridicule. Previously, he had used some secret methods to raise his cultivation to this level in the Cloud Sword sect. He originally thought that he could show off in front of Di Baichen, but he did not expect that Di Baichen had also raised his cultivation to the same level, so he did not have the chance to be proud. Previously, he had always thought that Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang's cultivation speed was too abnormal. Only now did he understand that they had such a heaven-defying divine tool. Cultivating here was equivalent to having 3 times the cultivation time. It couldn't get any better than that. Perhaps they would not discover anything in a short period of time, but after a long period of time, the gap would be very shocking. Di Baichen smiled faintly. You have your methods and I naturally have mine. However, now we are running together. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the spirit stones and said, now that everything is calm, let's cultivate first. Although the density of yuan qi here was not as high as in the demon training tower, using the spirit stones to cultivate and the time advantage here, overall, it was faster than cultivating in the demon training tower. Hearing this, Xiren nodded. Coincidentally, I have only been able to cultivate these days and have not had the chance to fight. I only feel that my fighting skills have become rusty. Now that there is such a good place, I am really looking forward to it. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen looked at each other with a faint smile in their eyes. The situation was exactly as they had expected. Not long after, Shangguan Yingying and when Xiren understood what Bailey Hongzhuang meant by different demonic beasts. Heavens, aren't the demonic beasts here too abnormal? This isn't a single demonic beast, it's a group of demonic beasts. How can these fellows be so despicable? Could it be that they only know how to gang up and don't have the courage to fight one-on-one? Another wave. This is going to kill me. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen, who were originally exhausted, heard the constant complaints of Wen Ziran and Shangguan Yingying, and their hearts were somewhat balanced. In the past, when they were abused here, they felt very helpless. Now, there were 2 more guys who were being abused. Especially when they warned Xiren and Shangguan Yingying, they didn't take it seriously. Now they finally understood where the pain came from. After a fierce battle, Shangguan Yingying and Xiren lay on the boat, exhausted. They only felt that their bodies had been hollowed out, and they didn't have the slightest bit of strength. Di Baichen couldn't help but tease, Xiren, you haven't fought for a long time. How does it feel to fight again? Xiren gasped for breath. Looking at Di Baichen, who was obviously in a better state than him, he said, you pervert, you still have the strength to fight. The demonic beasts here are simply unreasonable. The number of demonic beasts in this group is too shocking. However, hearing Xiren's words, Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Baichen couldn't help but be shocked. Chapter 3066. They had not been in the oceanic world for a long time. According to their previous situation, their endurance should be about the same as Xiren's. However, judging from the current situation, their endurance was clearly better than when Xiren's and Li Qi's. Now Xiren's had no strength to move, but at least the 2 of them still had the strength to move. In that case, this was where they improved in the oceanic world. When they were in the desert world, the biggest improvement was their strength, but the oceanic world helped to improve their endurance. No matter which point it was, maybe this little improvement was nothing, but once it was used in battle, the effect of this improvement would immediately be reflected. Xiren saw that Di Baichen and Bailey Hongzhuang were stunned after he said one sentence, and could not help but wonder, did I say something I shouldn't have said? Why do you 2 have such expressions? No. Di Baichen shook his head and said, you reminded us of our improvement during this time. We thought that cultivating here would only give us a chance to fight, but now it seems that the biggest improvement is endurance. As soon as these words came out, it was Xiren's turn to be stunned. He then nodded, now that you mention it, it is indeed so. My old man often said that endurance is extremely important for a cultivator. Once the strength of the 2 cultivators is not much different, then endurance is the key to determining the outcome. It is just that it is not easy to improve endurance and it is difficult to create such conditions. The situation in this oceanic world is completely possible. In that case, the value of Hongzhuang's small world is even more amazing. With that, Xiren turned his head to Bailey Hongzhuang and said, Hongzhuang, I still have to thank you for giving us a good opportunity to improve, haha. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Then I have to thank you for accompanying Di Baichen to Penglai Island. Xiren was slightly stunned, and the smile in his eyes deepened. He felt that Di Baichen had really found an excellent wife. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were being tortured by the demon beasts in the oceanic world, Lu Mingxiu finally learned the truth. The lady at the counter was unwilling to tell him the truth about Xiao Yihan's situation, but it didn't mean that he didn't have other ways to find out. Especially after seeing that the healing medicine on the 2nd floor was sold out, he already had a guess in his mind. Xiaoyihan, I didn't expect you to be so down and out right now. You actually have to buy healing medicine from the cultivators on the second floor. The way I see it, the reason why your injuries are getting better is because you used those 10 bottles of medicine together, right? How did it feel? Lu Mingxu looked at Xiaoyihan mockingly. He originally thought that he had been tricked by Xiaoyihan and was in a bad mood. Now that he knew that he had not fallen into Xiaoyihan's trap, his mood became much better. Looking at Lu Mingxu's happy expression, Xiaoyihan chuckled. What does it have to do with you how I recovered from my injuries? It's better than someone like you who plays tricks behind my back. Chapter 3067. Listening to Xiaoyihan's merciless mockery and sarcasm, Lu Mingxu's face darkened even more. His entire face had turned black. The failure last time was truly a great humiliation. Now, every time Xiaoyihan found a reason to mock him, he was unable to refute. He was about to go crazy from anger. You, Xiaoyihan, have always flaunted your high standards and disdained to use ordinary things. Who would have thought that you would fall to such a state? Lu Mingxu said coldly. Xiaoyihan smiled faintly and did not care about Lu Mingxu's mockery. Speaking of which, I still have to thank you. If it wasn't for you, I wouldn't have found a talent. Xiaoyihan was in a good mood today. He had just received 50 sets of healing medicine, and it was exactly the same as the ones he had bought before. Compared to the trouble of purchasing healing pills and medicines from the alchemist and doctor's area on a daily basis, he could only purchase a few bottles at most each time, and it also depended on whether the other party was interested and had the time to refine them. This cultivator on the second floor was simply too easy to talk to. He did not expect the other party to be so fast. He had only placed the order yesterday, and the other party had already brought all the healing medicine this morning. He liked this efficiency. This saved him a lot of time. He was even more determined to buy healing medicine from the cultivator on the second floor in the future. This way he would not have to accommodate those alchemists and doctors and waste his time. Hearing Xiaoyihan's words, Lu Mingxu could not help but frown. He did not understand what Xiaoyihan meant at all. However, Xiaoyihan did not intend to explain to Lu Mingxu. He turned around and left with a smile on his face. He was really grateful to Lu Mingxu. Otherwise, how could he have found such effective healing medicine? Looking at Xiaoyihan's disappearing figure, Lu Mingxu frowned. His face was full of displeasure. He felt that Xiaoyihan's words must have some deeper meaning. Could it be that there was something special about the cultivator who sold healing medicine on the second floor? He really did not think that such a lowly person was worth paying attention to. However, Xiaoyihan's confident look made him very confused. Could it be that there was something he did not notice? Thinking of this, Lu Mingxu felt that he had to figure out what the problem was. Otherwise, Xiaoyihan's attempt to cover up would only make things worse. Help me contact the cultivator selling healing medicine on the second floor. I want to see her. Lu Mingxu walked to the front of the counter and ordered. The woman at the counter was slightly stunned. She did not understand why Lu Mingxu was suddenly interested in Bailey Hongzhuang. However, she still said, "Young Master Lu, I can help you pass this request to the cultivator on the second floor." However, whether she agrees or not is not something I can control. Lu Mingxu frowned slightly. If you tell her who I am, does she dare not come to see me? The woman at the counter couldn't help but think of Bailey Hongzhuang's arrogant appearance. She really felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was likely to refuse. After all, when she was discussing the price with Bailey Hongzhuang, she had mentioned Xiaoyihan's name. However, Bailey Hongzhuang did not care at all. In comparison, Xiaoyihan's name was even bigger than Lu Mingxu's. However, the woman at the counter did not have the courage to say this out loud. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.